All right, teammates. We are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swift, I'm not going to say the Move Swiftly podcast no more. I'm going to start saying the Move Swiftly platform because we've gone from podcast to platform. Welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. For my regular listeners, as I just sort of alluded to, we're a platform now. You know what you get when you come here, whatever the struggle is, whatever the problem is, whatever it is you may be dealing with that seems like it's a lot. We are here to indirectly tell you you are not going through it alone. Let me tell you, I mean, it's a new world. We started this in 2020 and now we're in 2025. And cousin Chat GPT has blessed me again, folks. It's blessed me again. For those of you who don't know, I use Chat GPT to do a lot of the outreach work when it comes to me trying to get people on and stuff like that. And I, again, struck gold, got really blessed and fortunate to, do a cold outreach search and just reach out to anybody that I can connect with on the internet. And I fortunately got in touch with a guy named Glen Hellman, who will be on the show in just a quick second. But let me just give you a little bit of backstory in regards to why I thought he was someone that I really want to bring on and why I would think he connected is because, myself being born and raised in Silver Spring, Maryland, living out in Florida, I grew up around a great deal of entrepreneurial energy. My sister graduated from the University of Maryland. I graduated from Stony Brook, and he's actually from Jersey. So being a multi-published author, talking a lot about how you as business owners can help with how you guys can develop a staffing system. It's right up his alley. So Glenn, welcome to the show, man. How are you?
I'm fine, Oswan, and let's see how lucky you are. Well, let's see if you think you're lucky when we're done.
Yes. Well, the thing is, so regular listeners know this about me. Eventually I do my research and I will listen to people on other shows before they come on. And that's kind of my vetting process because I'm like a self-development junkie. And the thing about you is I jokingly tell my girlfriend all the time now, I'm not ruling out stand-up comedy. I'm not ruling out stand-up comedy. And she laughs at me because as an author, you always want to develop your public speaking skills. And you actually have experience doing that very thing. So before we get there, though, I'd love for you to just kind of introduce yourself a little bit more. If I missed anything in the intro, just give a little bit about your background a little bit, and then we'll kind of tailor it from there.
Okay. So I graduated from Maryland. Uh, I was part of the top of the class. I graduated in the top 80%,
Mm-hmm.
which meant I made the 80%, the top 80% possible. I was in the bottom. And the only thing that was open to me at the time, I was always interested in technology. The only thing that was open to me was sales jobs. And I worked my ass off and got a job at a company that was a startup
Uh-huh.
and called Lexitron. And it was just a blast. I
Mm-hmm.
loved it. I made a significant amount of money selling.
Mm-hmm.
And the company was sold to Raytheon, a large company.
Mm-hmm.
We operated under there. I became a manager. Um, and I left, went to another few other companies. I had one public offering where I was able to have a lot of stock, and it was a good public offering, made some money at Progress Software,
Mm-hmm.
and started my own company afterwards with a couple other guys. Failed miserably, raised $6 million and failed miserably.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Went to another company and we were very successful. I was hired as a consultant, came back, came on board as a COO,
Right.
directed the company. I had relationships with VCs, directed them how to raise VC money. We raised VC money. We sold it for $100 million cash.
Right.
Nice exit. Um, and when I did that, I had to work for this company, a Fortune 500 called 3Com at the time, for a year as a general manager. And I hated, that's the only time I really worked for a
Mm-hmm.
large company. I hated it, couldn't stand it, not the kind of culture
Right.
I could thrive in. Um, I had to stay 1 year to get an earnout. And when I left, one of the VCs from the prior company said, Glenn, we have a company just like Call Technologies. They're in trouble. Would you help do a turnaround?
Mm-hmm.
So I commuted from Washington to Colorado and Brisbane, Australia, where the
Are you
company is
serious? You
located.
commuted? You would.
I had family in Washington. I wasn't moving them. So I was only in Australia like
Huh.
2 weeks every 3 or 4 months.
Huh.
Mostly commuted from Denver to back to DC.
Huh.
Uh, we sold that company, not for a lot of money, but it was an interesting company, had $70 million invested, 300 employees, and I had to bring it down to 110 employees
Hmm.
within 90 days, or we were out of money.
Oh my
So
God.
after I did that turnaround, I got hired to do another one and then another one, all by the VC. It was sort of a one VC said, "Hey, I'd love you to do this company too."
Right.
And in 19, or I'm sorry, in 2007, during the turn down, and I had finished one of those turnarounds.
Hmm.
I had laid off so many people.
Right.
I had let, I had sold companies for parts. I was not a growth CEO. I was in hospice care and I was gently putting down companies and I became a coach.
Hmm.
So, in 2007, I joined an organization called Vistage. I learned how to coach.
Hmm.
Now I'm coaching on my own. And 4 years ago, I started working with, I spend half my time teaching at the University of Maryland.
Right.
I teach PhDs how to commercialize uh, technology, cutting edge technology.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that because as you came up, and I'm not going to put your age out there or anything like that, but
I'm 70.
I will say I'll put it out. You put it out there, but I will make sure the listeners are clear on the fact that graduating with a technology degree when you were in college was probably a lot different than what technology means in 2025. So you sort of started alluding to this, but when you're teaching people how to align technology, which is actually the most important thing, which is sales, something that a lot of people run away from. What are some of the steps that you're pushing them forward? Because I see a lot of people who say, I got a technology degree, but they think that they could just run away from sales. But sales is super important regardless of what you do. So what are some of the kind of steps when you talk to
So
people?
first thing we need to do is teach engineers how to talk to humans. Uh,
Yes, exactly. Yeah, 1000%, because they get so used to the machines and the coding and systems. Right, right.
and to not think about widgets, but to think about what kind of value do widgets provide.
Hmm.
So, um, and probably one of the best lessons is whatever you've done, you haven't created something that people don't have some kind of use for today. I mean, when the automobile was invented,
Hmm.
people were using horses. To
Yes.
concentrate
Yeah.
on the job to be done. The
Yeah.
job to be done with a car is to get from point A to point B efficiently.
Right.
And what one must do is interview people in the market, do customer discovery,
Hmm.
and not around your product, not talking about the product, but talking about the frustrations they have in the job to be done. Now, I don't know if QuickBooks
Hmm.
is one of your sponsors, but
QuickBooks.
I
No,
hate
no, it's
my,
not.
I'm sure, I hate my QuickBooks.
Right.
So if somebody called me and they thought we have the best accounting system since sliced bread, I
Hmm.
would talk to people who are SMBs about their accounting systems and said, Glenn, tell me about how you do your books. And I would say, well, I use this product called QuickBooks. And they might
Hmm.
say, well, how satisfied are you with QuickBooks? And I would say on a scale of 1 to 5. And
Hmm.
I'd say 1. I hate it. I absolutely hate it.
Right.
So they would go off, most people would go off and say, okay, I'm just going to write a better QuickBooks. The question they missed was, what's your priority to change on a scale of 1 to 5? And it's
Hmm.
2 because I don't want to learn a new system. I don't want to have to move all that data. I don't want to have to hook up. I've got a bunch of other things I'd rather work with. So talking to customers about the job they do, finding out what their frustrations are and how important those frustrations are, because people will not change if you're
Right.
just 10% better.
Right. Now, I'm glad you're touching on this topic because that was actually going to be the next talking point, and the next thing I wanted you to address as you were kind of running through your resume and all of the business experiences you have when it comes to the failures, the successes, and everything. Where do you see as a common theme amongst the folks who have failed, who have said, "Look, I want to do this, I want to do that," and it just didn't work out? Is there something that you see that's a common denominator in all of them?
In
Because
failure and
what's the such?
success,
Yes, yeah.
I look for three things.
Hmm.
So when I coach people,
Hmm.
I don't want to push a rock uphill and coach somebody who's not going to get anywhere.
Right.
That's my failure and theirs. So when I interview people for coaching, I look for people who have the potential to be great CEOs. And one of those things are how open are they to learn? So there are three types of CEOs I work with, I've met.
Hmm.
Those who know who's buried in the tomb of the unknown soldier.
Whoa, you got to elaborate on that one. That's a big one.
So it's they're so smart, you can't
Mhm.
teach them anything, they can't learn anything. They believe they know who's buried in that tomb.
Wow. There's a lot of you. I hope that hit somebody. I hope that touched someone. I hope you heard that one because that's hurting a lot of you right now. He's gonna hurt somebody.
Now, the second thing, and I am sure that none of your listeners, if they're regular listeners,
Hmm.
don't fit into this category, but it's those who do not know who's buried in Grant's tomb. They're just not, they're thick as rocks. They don't understand stuff.
Right.
Um, and the third category are the people who want to know, why is General Grant buried in Manhattan?
Hold up, let me-
Those people are curious, open to learn, they're lifelong learners,
Mhm.
and they listen. They listen, they learn, they're seeking knowledge all the time. That's who I look for as a good CEO. That's the first thing I'll look for is, are they green and growing? By the way, the reason Grant's buried in Manhattan is he died in New York. His wife wanted to be buried with him, and at the time, you couldn't be buried in Arlington Cemetery as a wife, as a spouse. So
Mhm.
New York put in a bid and said, "We'd like to have your tomb here,
Hmm.
Mrs. Grant." And she said, "Let's do it."
Well, first of all, thank you for that fun fact. I appreciate that. But I do want to touch on the people that you did say you work with, the ones that are always curious. Now, one of the terms that I have here that we have over here in the Move Swiftly world is the term wintrepreneur, like a person that has a mindset of an entrepreneur, but has been blessed enough to have a job that's paying them every 2 weeks, and they've aligned that job with their entrepreneurial vision, and they're learning along the way. So the title of CEO, you don't have it, but you have that mindset. How do you necessarily discover those people? How do you find, how do you sort of teach, especially the college students that you're working with now? How do you teach them to say no degree is necessarily going to just guarantee that I know everything? This mindset, it's a mental thing that you have to be curious day in and day out to figure certain things out.
So, as an athlete,
Hmm.
you'll understand this muscle memory.
Yes.
You practice, you practice, you practice so that when
Right.
you're in a situation, your body knows how to react before your even brain thinks about it.
Hmm.
It's the same thing with CEOs. First time CEOs rarely get it right.
All right.
And when they do get it right, and when anybody gets it right, 60% of having a winning company is luck. It's just luck.
Right.
Starting a company is a six-sided die. You throw it and you hope to get six. Now, if you're really smart,
Mhm.
maybe it's a four-sided die.
Right,
And if you work really hard, maybe you get to throw the die twice.
right,
But it's still a large component is luck.
right,
So muscle memory is important.
right,
Being in real companies, seeing good CEOs, bad CEOs, understanding why things work, good salespeople, bad salespeople, good engineering managers, and understanding that and just being able to feel it in your gut.
uh-huh,
This guy's right. This lady's right. This guy's wrong. Being able to do that.
uh-huh,
So picking up experience in real world companies. I
yes,
will tell you one of the things that the first time success guy often thinks success is because of them, will not give the credit to luck.
yeah,
Those are the people who often become the people who know who's buried in the tomb of the unknown soldier. I did it, I got right out of college. I did it and it worked.
uh-huh,
And I am the smartest guy in the world.
yes. So I'm glad you're
Failure
bringing this
teaches.
up because it wasn't until after college where I read the favorite book I've ever read was Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. And, he speaks on that hockey team that had a leg up on the competition because they were born by a certain date. And these are things when I first read it as a sports guy, I was like, come on, Malcolm Gladwell, you kind of you're reaching. But then he starts talking about the Beatles and how they were performing 7 hours of this garbage, and then Beethoven and so many other
1,000 hours.
yeah, to 10,000 hours. And when you think about, the things I've done, you think about the things you've done, it's literally been 10,000 hours, but these are things that just happen. We grew up, like I mentioned, I grew up in Maryland, not knowing that, look, Bill Clinton was going to do this and I was going to get into politics and this, no, Bob I did not know all these things were going to happen, but I saw them growing up. So when you mention luck, I think to that CEO, like you had just mentioned, or even to the athlete that comes out of college and makes millions of dollars, you start thinking you know everything there is to know about the world. And eventually that begins your downfall, folks. I'm telling this for a reason. You cannot let it get to the point where you think you know everything there is to know about the world. And I'm bringing all this up because I do want to make sure, because I want to be very respectful of your time. But you also have a book series out, which was one of the things that really attracted me to what you're doing. Can you speak a little bit on the intellectual property, the book series that you have out now, how all that came about, and just kind of go ahead and plug away a little bit.
Okay, so as a business coach, I've taken all the lessons that I've learned in business in 40 years and tried to put it in a book called Intentional Leadership.
Yep.
It took me 10 years to write that book,
Mm-hmm.
but then it was like a dam broke. So I have to tell a story that's kind
Yes.
of funny. I used to be a blogger. I was well known in DC. They called me Mr. Cranky.
Mr. What, Cranky?
Mr. Cranky. And the reason I was Mr. Cranky is I was an angel investor and a startup CEO and a business coach, and I would see people pitching for money who were either lying or stupid or whatever else. So there was this guy once who said he went to was a Harvard grad, and I
Right.
was able to check. He just didn't talk like a Harvard grad, and I don't care if you're a Harvard grad or not. I just care if you say you're a Harvard grad and you're not. I
Right.
mean, I don't care if you went to college. There are great CEOs who never went to college.
Right.
So I checked it out, and it turned out that he had taken a class that was open to anybody with a credit card. He had taken one class that
Mm-hmm.
cost him $2,000 that was online, and he called himself a Harvard grad. He had flunked out of a local Virginia college.
Jeez.
I found all this out.
Uh-huh.
So then I started digging into his background. I found some other uh, red flags.
Mm-hmm.
I would write about that and I'd call him out and he threatened to sue me. And I actually did a GoFundMe to raise money. And I raised $6,000. And
Wow.
my lawyer then sent him a note saying pound sand. And they
Wow.
never wound up suing me. But that guy now is in prison.
Oh my God.
It, Barbara Corcoran from the Shark Tank
Yeah.
was an investor in his company. He had raised $18 million.
Mm-hmm.
With it, he bought a $2 million house in Alexandria, $2.5 million house in Sea Isle, New Jersey. He was
Yeah.
flying to
I've
Europe.
heard like Shark Tanks, like some of the sharks, I've heard them say stuff like that off camera, like when they're like, there's people I've invested in, they went and bought a car, they bought a house, they did a bunch of illegal stuff. So that's something that you listeners as be clear about as well.
Yeah, so I wrote about him.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, the FBI called me
Wow.
and said, where are you getting this information? We've been looking at this guy. And I shared my sources and other things.
Mm-hmm.
And he went to prison. So I said, I want to write a book about it. So I wrote a book about a business coach blogger who
Mm-hmm.
exposed the company. And it turns out the company, which was very much like this other company, this Uber for private detectives was the company
Right.
called Trustify. And I wrote an article about a guy who did that. And it turned out the company wasn't supposed to be a goods company. The mob stood it up
Oh man.
as a money laundering scheme. And therefore, the mob went after this character in the book.
Hmm.
Uh, and I had so much fun writing it, and it did pretty well in
Right.
sales. So I said, I'll write another one. So that is a continuing character now.
Right. Now, you go from the books, and the one thing I know personally from experience is it's writing the book and selling the book, two completely different things. So, walk us through that transition from writing the book to selling the book, and then where does this lead to? Hold on, let me make sure I don't want to say it wrong one. Yes, CXO Elevate.
So it's not really involved with, well, it's not part of CXO Elevate. It is, I publish it under that business,
Yeah.
but it's look, it's more of a hobby.
Yes.
Um, I do have a author site which helps sell it. I've
Yeah,
got
that's what I saw.
it's out on Amazon.
Mhm.
I do some promotional stuff. Um, I've done a few book fairs. I see it in
Mhm.
those libraries where you walk by and there's like a book
Yeah,
library. I
yeah,
put it
yeah,
there.
yeah. Yeah.
And one of the keys about writing a series is if you put the fourth book in there and it gives people background, they'll
Yeah.
go back and read the first book.
Yeah.
So if writing a series helps sell all of the books,
Hmm.
as long as you make sure that each book, you can pick up each book individually.
Exactly. That I mean, I give all potential aspiring authors that same advice all the time. Write your next one because the one is gonna be tough to sell, but the minute you find your tribe of people, if you have the next one for them, they're gonna keep coming back for more and more. Myself, the minute I read Malcolm Gladwell's Outliers, it was What the Dog Saw, it was Tipping Point, it was absolutely all of the ones he had, and I was just running through. The Blink was the next one. I mean, I become a fan of his work and his blog
Sure.
as he did the one thing, and that helped tailor things up. So, Glenn, I do want to be, like I said, I want to be very respectful of your time. Before you go, though, can you just tell people a little bit about what's next and how they can get in touch with you if they're interested in hearing more and working with you further?
Okay. Um, I don't want to take too much time, but one of the things
No, we got
that
unlimited
we
time.
never
That's fine.
talked about before I do that is one of the things we talked about was hiring and retaining. The best way to retain people is to hire the right people. And the best way to hire the right people is to look at four different factors.
Mm-hmm.
The first factor is, are they a cultural fit? Now, well defining your culture and then interviewing for culture, because culture is the most, in terms of retention, culture is the most important factor in employee success.
Right.
So you don't ask somebody, um, are you a team player? Because I know what the answer is yes. What you want to talk about is tell me about it. You want to ask situational questions for
Mm-hmm.
cultural fit. So if it's team player is one of the
All right.
things that we believe in, tell me about a time when you were working and you were done with work early. What'd you do?
Yes.
Tell me about a time when people around you were struggling. What'd you do? You want to ask situational questions that tell you, that show you, give you insight that there is a cultural fit. The next thing is a personality fit. So, as an athlete, you know this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm short, I'm fat. I am never going to dunk you can't teach me how to dunk a basketball,
Mm-hmm.
but you could teach me how to hit a free throw.
Yeah.
Hitting a free throw is a skill. Dunking a basketball isn't a skill, it's a physical trait. You got to be able to
God,
jump, you
God
got to be a
given.
certain height.
It's God
It's a
given.
physical trait.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing in work. If you gave me I have the cognitive ability, which is another thing you want to check,
Mm-hmm.
and the experience, which is the other thing you want to check. If you gave me an accounting finance test and it was a 20-minute test, I'd ace it.
Mm-hmm.
If you hired me to be your CFO, I'd fail in a day because I am not wired. My personality is not wired to do the same thing over and over again,
Yeah.
pay that attention to detail.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're asking somebody to do a job that doesn't fit their traits, their hardwired traits, it's like taking one of those spring-loaded weights.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a good fit, like telling a story, I'm a storyteller, then that spring-loaded weight is 10 pounds and I can hold it there all day.
Yeah.
If you ask me to be an accountant, it's 150 pounds and I can barely get it across, but I can only hold it for 5 minutes.
Right.
So smart people can do things that they're not wired to do, but they can't do it for a long period of time. So you want to make sure you understand what are the traits important for the role and does this person fit the trait?
Mm-hmm.
And the next two are a balance. If you need them to be productive tomorrow, then experience is the most important thing. if you have time to teach him, way more important than experience is cognitive ability. So you want to judge their experience, their cognitive ability, their personality
Mhm.
traits, and cultural fit.
Right.
If you get all those things right, you build a good, cohesive team.
Right. And it to kind of I appreciate you sharing that first of all. And then to add to that point, you as an owner, you gotta know these things before you get engaged in the conversation. Because if you don't know it going in, then what I've seen is people get so desperate to hire folks and just fill bodies, then they just end up it's like a factory where you're just bringing people in and out because you haven't established a structure on the beforehand for you to figure out who are the right people, what is the culture, and what are the traits I'm looking for. Not necessarily the degrees and like you had just mentioned, who can ace a test, but what are the traits that I'm able to look for. So when I see it, okay, that's my guy. That's
That's right. What are the traits and what's the culture? And if you
no doubt.
haven't defined
Mhm.
the culture defines itself, and that's not good.
No, it's
I
not
agree.
because it's like it just moves in the direction. Again, no one, let's even go back 3 or 4 years ago. The way I got in touch with you wouldn't have been possible because ChatGPT really wasn't a big thing where, it's just connecting folks that are like-minded and it's
Oswan, that
that
is a fabulous point.
right.
Especially and culture isn't static.
Mhm.
So when you're brand new, you have one kind of culture. When you're bigger, you're going to have another kind of culture.
Exactly,
Small
exactly.
companies usually have a culture. One of their cultural fits is loyal. It's a loyalty culture.
Hmm.
This is a small company. I can't pay you well. You're worried about your job. I'm going to be loyal to you. But eventually, you got to get to a performance culture.
Exactly. And I mean, listen, the sports world, we could definitely dive into that. I know you're on that campus where basketball is a big thing out there at the university. So I was there that year, 2002. My sister she had just started there and they won that national championship with Lonnie Baxter and Juan Dixon
That
and all
was it.
that
That
stuff.
was a great
That
game.
was an amazing time to be just a part of the DMV and the strike. It's Coalfield House is now it's the indoor football stadium now, but boy, those are the times, man.
So if you go look at when Friedgen started,
Yeah, Ralph
that
Friedrich, right.
team had like 3 wins
Mhm.
the year he took over. He didn't bring in any new big players,
Hmm.
but he did change the culture. And that same team won the ACC. He was coach of the year,
Yeah. Mhm.
and they went to the Orange Bowl and
Listen,
got their butts beat. But
now me and my sister, we went to that. Now I like Florida State. I'm a Michigan fan, and my heart's with Michigan. My second team is Florida State, so I went there. My sister was like, "Look, you might not want to say because we're in the student section." She's like, "You might want to keep that under wraps." And it just so happens that was the upset when Maryland beat Florida State that
that
year.
is the only year we beat Florida
Only,
State.
and I was there in the crowd, and I was like,
I was there.
I could not believe that happened. So man, look, I will be back there at some point. So when I am, man, we got to link up and
Yeah, let's do that.
kind of chat it and do something because this is I got you on LinkedIn and all that stuff. But like I said, before you go, please plug away. Tell people how they can get
Company name is
you and all that.
CXO Elevate.
Hmm.
I run two CEO groups that meet once a month
Okay.
in the DC area. So you got to be a DMV
Mhm.
person for that. But they meet once a month and it's like group therapy. Um,
Yes. Mhm.
it is a great place to be a simulator because we work on each other's problems. So you're seeing problems that you haven't found yet and helping people solve those issues
All right.
so that when it shows up, you have your pattern recognition. It's a way to accelerate pattern recognition. And also, one-on-one coaching, really complicated issues,
Mhm.
my answers are not necessarily right. But when you have a group of people working together with the same goal and a process,
Yes.
new issue processing, uh, it's golden. So I
Yeah.
do that. I coach and buy my books. They're all on Amazon. Glen Hellman, just go to Amazon and say Glen Hellman books.
Yeah, I will. We'll include all that in the show notes as well, so you guys don't got to worry about writing all this. That we'll make sure we add links to it as well. So, Glenn, the final thing I do to close out all the shows is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are just graduating. You just walked across the stage at the University of Maryland. You're graduated. You're here in the real world. Pretend that 22-year-old young man is right here in the Zoom room. Give him some words of encouragement or just some words of advice, and we will officially close.
So it's really hard to get a job right now. It really is.
Yes.
Don't just send in a resume and pray.
Mm-hmm.
Show up. Sit in that waiting room and wait.
Mm-hmm.
Meet somebody. Get warm introductions. Um, I'll tell you that when I got hired, uh, I told the guys it was a company I wanted to work for. They didn't hire people out of college. I told them I wouldn't leave. I said, look, I'll work for free
Yes.
until you think I can show you value.
Yeah.
And they hired me. And 3 years later, I was managing a team of 10
Mm-hmm.
people. Some of them, there was none of them who was within 10 years of my age.
Mm-hmm.
But do not do not throw in a resume and think it's going to work. It's got to be something else. You got to do something else.
As the promise of the show, whatever you're struggling with, whatever the difficulty is, we're here to indirectly tell you you're not going through
When
it
you
alone.
when you use Indeed or LinkedIn to
Yeah.
apply for a thing, there's 1,000 there, and you're not going to stand out. But if you're
Right.
sitting in the waiting room
Mm-hmm. You're there.
of the lobby, you'll stand out.
Exactly. So the final thing we do is we officially drop the mic. We
Thank you.
officially done it. So fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
All right, I enjoyed it. Thank you.
All right.